The skies over planet Charon turned red the day the humans arrived. No one expected war. Not again. The galaxy had been quiet for nearly 100 years after the last battle between the great empires. Treaties were signed, weapons stored, borders respected. Charon, home of the powerful Ascarine Empire, stood as a symbol of peace, ruled by a fierce and beautiful queen, who had never known defeat. But peace was a lie. It started with a missing human scout ship. Then came the silence from a mining colony near the outer rim. One by one, communication hubs went dark. The humans didn't talk. They didn't warn. They simply appeared on Charon's edge and started walking straight toward the palace. Queen Thalzira sat on her throne of silver bones, her long black horns catching the glow from the fires outside. The war front was getting closer every hour. Her advisors shouted in panic, screaming of betrayal and invasion. But the queen only narrowed her eyes. "They're not here to destroy us," she said calmly. "How do you know?" Her war general asked. "Their machines are leveling our outposts. They haven't answered a single message." "Because if they wanted to kill us all, they already would have," she said. "They want something." But no one knew what that something was. Far from the palace, in a ruined outpost at the edge of the capital, a human soldier named Elias Cole walked through the smoking rubble. His helmet was off, his suit torn. Dust and blood clung to his face. Yet his eyes were clear-focused. He moved differently than the others. While human units deployed like hammers, smashing through defense lines, Elias walked like a shadow. He didn't break. He moved past. While others shot at guards, he spared them. While others torched buildings, he slipped inside them, searching. Whispers spread fast among the Ascarine ranks. There was one human who didn't kill. A lone man who carried no orders. One who was heading toward the queen. Queen Thalzira watched the feeds. When her advisors wanted to call him an assassin, she shook her head. "He's not here to end me," she said. "He's here for me." They didn't understand. Not yet. But she did. This wasn't war for conquest. This was war for her. As strange as it sounded, something in her chest whispered it. She didn't know why. She didn't even believe in fate. But as the human pushed through defense after defense alone, silent, fearless, she could feel it. He wasn't like the others. And finally, after 3 days, the palace gates cracked. Elias stood alone as the smoke settled around the great doors. The Ascarine guards had fallen, not dead but unconscious. He hadn't used weapons made to kill. He had used darts, gas, and shadows. That alone frightened them more than death. He came to face their queen, and he wanted her to be alive. Inside the throne room, the air was heavy with heat and silence. The queen waited in the center, her silver claws resting gently on her knees. Her violet skin glistened with sweat from the battle's heat. Her crown floated just above her head, powered by ancient tech. Her soldiers held their breath. Her advisors whispered escape routes. But she raised her hand and everyone fell silent. Elias stepped forward. Thalzira stood. Neither spoke for a moment, then she tilted her head. "You've come through fire, blood, and steel. Just to look me in the eyes?" Elias nodded once. She narrowed hers. "You could have asked." He finally spoke, voice quiet but steady. "You wouldn't have listened." Her lips curled into a slow smile. "And now that I'm listening, what do you want? Human? Power? Territory? The throne? The stars?" He shook his head. The room went still. Everyone waited. Thalzira frowned. "You don't want the throne? No. Riches? No. Slaves? Ships? My entire empire? No." She stepped closer, her heels clicking against the black stone floor. "Then what do you want?" He looked at her without fear. "You." The room froze. Even the air seemed to stop moving. She blinked once. "Me? I want you. not as a prize, not as a queen, just as a woman. Gasps echoed through the hall. Some soldiers reached for weapons. Felzira held up a hand. There was something in his eyes. Something terrifying. It was honesty. She could command armies, destroy planets, seduce emperors, but this one human had walked through war and offered her nothing except a simple, impossible truth. And somehow it made her knees feel weak. What? If I refuse? She asked, voice low now. You won't, he said softly. Because deep down, you're tired of being treated like a trophy. You want someone to see the real you. That was the moment her heart stumbled in her chest. For a second, the queen was no longer a ruler. She was just a woman. And Elias wasn't a soldier, he was something far more dangerous. He was human, and he saw her. Not the empire. Not the power. Just her. She didn't know what scared her more, his courage, or how much she wanted to believe him. The throne. Room stayed silent long after the human spoke. No one had ever said such words to Queen Felzira. Not her generals, not her suitors, not even the council of elders who raised her after her mother's death. Every being in her life had only ever seen the crown, not the woman beneath it. Yet this human, Elias, stood in front of her and asked for nothing but her. She wasn't sure if she should laugh, scream, or step closer. Her claws twitched. Her tail moved with a slow curve, confused by her own feelings. Was this a trick? Some deeper plan? But then she looked into his eyes. Again, there was no hunger for conquest. No pride. No fear. Only truth. You came alone, she finally said, circling him. No army. No translator. Not even a weapon in hand. I brought peace, Elias answered calmly. But peace doesn't walk through the front door. It has to be earned. Her steps paused. You forced your way in, she said. I only stopped those who stood in the way, he said. I didn't kill them. And yet you brought war to my world. I brought choice. The words hit harder than weapons. The guards were frozen, unsure whether to arrest him or protect him. The advisors trembled, unable to speak. And the queen. She could feel something rising inside her. Something old. Something dangerous. Emotion. She turned her back to him and walked toward the large fire mirror at the far end of the throne room. Flames danced across the glass, showing every battlefield across Karen. Smoke rose. Soldiers bled. Machines burned. This war cost thousands of lives, she said. Not because of me. She turned back sharply. Then who should I blame? Your walls, Elias said. Your silence. Your fear. She narrowed her glowing eyes. You think you understand us? She asked. We built this empire from blood and ash. We fought wars before your kind could speak. We ruled stars. We crushed rebellions. We've survived betrayal, plague, and time itself. You think a single man can shake that? He didn't answer with words. He stepped forward. Just one step, and she felt it again like thunder under her skin. He wasn't trying to challenge her. He was trying to reach her. A storm brewed in her mind. Part of her wanted to break him. Another part wanted to ask him to stay. She finally asked, Why me? He breathed slowly. Because even queens deserve someone who wants them for who they are, not what they own. Her lips parted slightly. She wasn't used to weakness in herself. She hated how her heart thudded in her chest like a drum. She hated how much she didn't hate him. You don't know me, she whispered. I know you hide behind power, Elias said. I know you're lonely in a palace full of liars. I know you wake up every day wondering if anyone truly sees you. She stepped down from her throne. He didn't move. She circled him again, slower now, watching his every breath. And what if I offered you anything else? She asked. Gold, ships, eternal life. I could make you rich beyond belief. I could give you stars." "I don't want stars," Elias said. "Then what are you?" she asked, her voice now softer than ever before. "A fool? Maybe," he said. "But I'm a fool who sees you." She stopped walking. Their eyes locked again, and something broke. Not in her empire dot, but inside her. A single crack. Deep within the heart she had locked away for years. "Send the others out," she said quietly. The guards blinked. The advisors gasped. "Your Majesty." "I said out." Her voice thundered. The throne room emptied in moments. Now it was just her and the human. She stared at him. Her shoulders lowered. Her breath slowed dot, and then she whispered, "You came to take my heart, but I don't even know how to give it." He stepped closer, slowly, gently, like approaching a wounded creature. "You don't have to give it all," he said. "Just don't hide it." No one had ever dared to speak like that to the Queen. No one had ever been allowed. But Elias didn't ask for permission. He offered understanding. And that was something even a Queen didn't know she craved until... Now Thalzira stood there in silence, fighting her feelings. She had offered him the universe. He only asked for her. And for the first time in her long reign, the Queen didn't know how to answer. Not with power, but with truth. The great throne room felt colder now that they were alone. Queen Thalzira stood quietly near the flame mirror, the soft light dancing across her face. She was known across the stars as the Queen without mercy, the fire-eyed ruler, the untouched monarch. And yet now, with this human standing calmly in front of her, she didn't feel powerful. She felt exposed. Elias didn't rush her. He simply stood still, allowing her silence to speak louder than words. "I've killed people for looking me in the eyes," she said at last. "I know," Elias replied. "I've started wars with a whisper. I've read the records. I could destroy you in a single thought, then why haven't you?" She turned sharply at that. Her eyes flared, not in rage but confusion, because deep down, she didn't know the answer. Elias continued before she could speak. "You didn't call the executioners. You didn't strike me down. And you didn't laugh when I said I wanted you, not your empire. Why?" Thalzira stepped down from the mirror and approached him. Her armor shifted with a soft metallic sound, light but strong. She moved like a warrior, but her eyes held something different now. "I've lived for over 200 years, she said slowly. "I've had suitors from a dozen species. Some brought gifts, some brought blood. All wanted something from me." She stopped a foot in front of him, but none of them ever said they saw me. Elias didn't blink. "I do." She hated that he said it so easily. Hated more that part of her wanted to believe it. Her voice was quieter now. "If I give you what? You want what then? Will you leave with my name? Will you parade it through your kind like a prize?" "No," Elias said. "You'll ask for nothing more? No riches, no title, no crown." She looked at him, trying to find a lie, a trick, a weakness. But all she found was that terrifying, steady truth. "And if I give myself to you," she whispered, "what will you give me in return?" He reached into his coat and pulled something out. A small, smooth stone. Dark blue, cracked through the dew. Center, ordinary, unimpressive. She frowned. "You bring me a rock?" He stepped forward, holding it out. "It's from Earth," he said. "My mother gave it to me before she died." "The Queen didn't touch it," she said. "Don't give this to someone unless you believe they carry more weight than you can bear alone." Thalzira's throat tightened. He laid the stone gently on the ground between them. "I brought it all this way, through fire, through war, not for your throne, but for you." She stared at the stone, small, simple, yet it weighed more than any jewel in her treasury. "I don't know how to love," she admitted in a raw voice. "I know how to rule, how to fight, How to command? But love? That's a weakness. Elias shook his head. Love is choice. Power is just fear with a crown. But love is choosing someone even when you don't have to. She sat down slowly on the steps of her throne, her long cloak folding behind her like dark wings, and for the first time in her life, she looked tired. I never asked to be queen, she said. They gave me this throne when I was 13. My father was assassinated. My mother poisoned. I had no time to cry. No one allowed me to be weak. Elias didn't move. He simply listened. They taught me to kill, not care, she continued. So I killed. I ruled. I survived. But I never lived. Her voice cracked on that last word. He knelt down, just a step below her. You're not weak, he said gently. You're alone. Her eyes filled with something unfamiliar. Moisture. It had been decades since she last cried. She thought her tears were lost, burned out by duty. But now they returned, uninvited. And Elias didn't stare. He didn't reach. He just sat beside her, quiet, strong, present. That simple presence broke. Something deeper than any war ever could. Could still kill you, she whispered through the tears. You could, he replied softly, but you won't. No, she admitted. They sat there in silence, queen and soldier, ruler and rebel. Two beings from different worlds. One raised on command, the other raised on kindness. And somewhere in that silence, a new connection began to grow, fragile, strange, and real. The kind of bond that could change empires, or end them, because what came next wouldn't be easy. The court wouldn't accept him. The council would fear her. Weakness. And the galaxy wasn't ready for a queen who wanted to be human, even just for a moment. But she was done pretending. For the first time in 2 centuries, she had made a choice, and she wasn't afraid of it. The morning sky over Karen was gray. Clouds hung low as if they too were waiting for the queen's next move. Inside the palace, the air was tense. The guards had returned to their posts, but they whispered behind their masks. The advisors no longer shouted. They watched from the shadows with nervous eyes. Something had changed in the queen, and they all felt it. She didn't wear her war crown that day. She walked without it, her long black robes trailing behind her like a tide of night. Her face was calm, unreadable. But behind that calm, something unfamiliar lived. Softness. Elias walked beside her. Not behind her, not far away. Beside her. The palace had never seen such a thing before. Thalzira stopped at the high council chamber. The 2 giant doors were closed. On the other side, her council waited, expecting her to explain the human's presence. Some had already called it betrayal. Others warned she had been compromised. A few whispered of exile, or worse. But the queen stood without fear. She looked at Elias. I'm going to speak to them, she said. Alone, he nodded. I'll wait, she paused. Then added, they won't like what I have to say. They don't need to, Elias replied, as long as it's the truth. Her lips curled slightly. Not quite a smile, but close. Pushed the doors open and stepped into the chamber. 12 elders in silver robes sat around the circular table. Their faces were ancient, carved by age and fear. They rose as she entered but said nothing. Thalzira walked to the center. One of them spoke. Your Majesty, explain this human's presence. He entered the palace during conflict, she said calmly. But he did not come to destroy. He came to speak. Speak? Another elder scoffed. He broke through the capital alone. That's not a peace talk. That's an invasion. No one died, the queen said. He didn't use lethal force. Intentions do not change the law, an elder snapped. He is a trespasser, a threat. Thalzira's voice was steady. He is under my protection now. The room stirred with shock. You protect a human? I do. The eldest counselor, A gray-skinned woman with glowing gold eyes leaned forward. "And what, may we ask, did he offer you that made you throw our laws aside?" The queen looked around the room. "He offered me nothing." Silence followed. The elders didn't understand. "No planets," she said. "No trade, no weapons. He asked for no alliance." "Then what did he take?" Thalzira met their gaze. "He asked for me." The room went dead silent. Then chaos erupted. "He seeks to rule through you. He manipulates your mind. Is this some form of human sorcery? Silence?" Thalzira's voice echoed like thunder, stopping them mid-sentence. She stood taller now. "I have ruled this empire for over 2 centuries, she said. "I've led us through plagues, invasions, and civil war. I've never once asked for rest. I've never asked for love." She breathed slowly. "But I am asking now." The elders stared at her, shocked. "I will not give up my crown," she said, "but I will no longer wear it as a wall." "You speak as if love is strength," one elder whispered. "It is," she replied. "This human, this Elias he sees. Me, not as a queen, not as a weapon, just as a woman. And that is something none of you ever offered." The eldest counselor stood. "You risk everything for feelings." "No," Thalzira said softly. "For truth." Outside the doors, Elias waited. He could hear muffled voices. Heated, sharp, but he didn't pace. He didn't worry. He had already done the impossible. Now it was her turn. The doors opened. Thalzira stepped out, her expression unreadable. She walked to him. "The council will not support us," she said. "They will try to stop this." "I know," he replied. "They may try to remove me. They'll fail." She looked into his eyes. "This path will not be easy." Elias nodded. "The right ones never are." Something passed between them, quiet, powerful, not the words of rulers, but of equals. She took his hand, cold fingers against warm skin, and the palace gasped out. From the walls, the guards watched. From the halls, servants peeked. The queen, touching a human. Not to hurt, not to command, but simply to feel. That one act echoed across the empire like a strike of lightning. It wasn't just about affection. It was rebellion. She offered him her world. He only took her hand. The news spread faster than light. Across the Askarine Empire, whispers turned into storms. The queen had touched a human. She had chosen him, not as a servant, not as a prisoner, as something more. Some called it madness. Others called it weakness. But many, deep in their hearts, felt something they hadn't felt in years. Hope. In the lower city, where the poorest Askarine lived among the smoke vents and fuel spills, they told the story like a fairy tale. He walked through fire to reach her, they said, and instead of taking her throne, he held her hand. In the military command centers, the reaction was very different. "She's compromised," said General Vorn, pounding his steel fist on the table. "This human must be removed before he breaks the empire from within." Other commanders nodded. "Her behavior is strange, emotional, reckless." "She's still the queen," one younger voice added, unsure. "Then she's a queen who needs to be corrected," Vorn growled. "Before the people start thinking love makes her stronger." He turned to the holoscreen. "Prepare the shadow guard. We're going to separate her from that human permanently." Back in the palace, Queen Thalzira sat on her private balcony, staring at the twin moons above. Elias sat nearby, sharpening a blade, though he didn't need it. Old habits died slowly. She finally spoke. "I was warned not to trust humans." He looked up. "Why?" "Because you fight without fear. You burn through systems with emotion. You love like fire and leave ashes behind." Elias gave a small smile. "And yet here I am." "Yes," she said, "here you are." She stood and stepped to the edge, her long hair catching the night wind. I've done things, Elias, terrible things, not just in war. In peace, too, to keep power, to protect my people. I've sentenced innocents. I've ordered pain. I know, he said. You know? I read the files before I came. I saw. What you've done, she turned sharply. And you still wanted me? I didn't come for who you were, Elias said. I came for who you could be. Those words hit her like nothing else. She had given up on becoming anything more than a symbol, a ruler, a name in history. But he spoke to a future she didn't believe she deserved. A soft alarm chimed. Her smile faded. They're coming. Elias stood. How many? She pressed a hidden panel. A floating map showed the guards fast, silent, surrounding the upper palace. The Shadow Guard, she said. Elite loyalists. They think you've poisoned me. I haven't. They don't care. Elias picked up his blade, then paused. You could hand me over, he said quietly. Tell them I forced you. They'd believe it. You'd keep your throne. She looked at him, eyes glowing softly, and lose the one thing that ever made me feel real? Her hand found his again. Double quotes. No. If they want to remove you, they'll have to go through me. He squeezed her hand gently. Then let's show them what two hearts can do. The palace erupted in motion. Shadow guards broke through walls. Cloaked figures dropped from ceilings. Blasters hummed. Knives flashed. But what they found wasn't a weak human or a broken queen. They found a pair, fighting back to back. Elias moved. Like lightning, disarming, redirecting, never killing. Thalzira moved like a storm-sharp, precise, regal even in battle. Together, they were terrifying. Room by room, the attack failed. The guards hesitated. Some fell. Others stopped fighting, confused by the Queen's command to spare them. And finally, at the center of the royal library, General Vorn stormed in. The old warrior faced them both. You would throw away an empire for him? Vorn shouted. Thalzira, breathing hard, replied coldly. I would rebuild the empire for truth. He's not one of us. No, he's better. Vorn lunged, but Elias was faster. One strike, clean, controlled. The general fell, weapon rolling from his hand. Thalzira stepped forward. Take him to the cells, she told the guards. Gently. The soldiers looked at each other, then obeyed. As the palace calmed and the last fires faded, Elias leaned against the wall, breathing hard. You could have let them take me. Thalzira smiled faintly, wiping blood from her cheek. I didn't walk through war to lose you now, he chuckled softly. I think I might be in love with a war queen. She turned toward him. And I, she said, stepping close, might be ready to learn how to love. Asterisk for the first time in her reign. Queen Thalzira held court not from her throne, but beside Elias. It was not a grand ceremony. No golden robes. No fanfare. Just her voice, carried across the imperial network, broadcast to every corner of the empire. She stood tall before the cameras, her face calm but strong. I know many of you fear what you've seen, she began. A queen with a human, a ruler with a stranger. I will not lie to you. Yes, I chose him, but not to weaken us, not to give away power. I chose him because he reminded me that power without purpose is just a prison. People across the empire listened in silence. She went on, this empire has known war for centuries, and peace, too, but never trust, never truth. Elias Cole came here not with weapons, but with a question. Who are you without your crown? She looked into the camera, as if speaking to every citizen personally, for once. I didn't know the answer. Elias stood beside her, not speaking, but his presence alone shook the foundations of tradition. That speech changed everything. Some citizens were angry, some celebrated, others were unsure. But they all knew one thing: this was not the same. Queen. In the days that followed, the palace became a place of strange new light. Thalzira no longer slept in the cold crystal chamber above the throne. She chose a simpler room, smaller, quieter, with a window to the stars. Elias stayed with her not as a guest or prisoner, but as her equal. They spent long nights talking. About Earth, about Karen. About their pasts and the futures they feared. Elias told her of his younger brother, lost in the early space wars. Thalzira told him of the child she almost had with a political husband, who never loved her and vanished after an assassination plot. They held each other not like heroes, but like survivors. One evening, as they walked through the gardens beneath the twin moons, she said something he hadn't expected. "I think I'm afraid of peace." He looked at her. "Why?" "Because I don't know what to do with it." He smiled. "Then let's learn together." They kissed softly under the silver trees, but peace never lasts long in an empire built on war. Far from Karen, in the dark halls of the outer circle, a council of old warlords met in secret. They had watched her speech. They had seen her hold hands with a human, and they hated her for it. "She is no longer fit to rule," said one. "She speaks of love, not power. She shows weakness. She has given the human insight into our ways." One of them slammed his clawed fist on the table. "Then we must act. What do you suggest?" "We take the throne back." Quietly, quickly, a plan was formed, not with fire, not with blades, but with betrayal. Back at the palace, the queen had begun building a new council, one that included young voices, citizens from across the empire, and even non-military leaders. She called it the Circle of Renewal. It was her first true attempt at reform. Elias supported her, helping translate old human strategies into something her empire could use without domination. One night, as they sat reviewing security protocols, Elias paused. "You feel that?" he asked. Thalzira's eyes narrowed. "Yes." The power grid dimmed, then flared. Suddenly, alarms screamed through the palace. Not the Shadow Guard, not assassins. This time, it was the outer circle. Warlords in cloaked ships had surrounded the city, jamming communication, cutting power, sending drones to swarm every gate, and they had help from within. The captain of the palace guard betrayed her. Thalzira's trusted servant of years opened the gate for them. Explosions rocked the eastern wall. She turned to Elias. "This is a coup." He was already locking down the room, pulling weapons from a hidden floor panel. "Then we make our stand." "No," she said, grabbing his arm. "You need to leave. They want me, not you." He shook his head. "They won't stop at you. If I leave, they'll say you were just a weak queen seduced by a human, that your heart was your failure." He stepped close, gripping her shoulders. "But if I stay and we fight together again, they'll see the truth." She stared at him, heart racing. "You came for me through war," she whispered. "Now I'll go through war for you." Together they turned to face the storm once more. Only this time, it wasn't just about survival. It was about proving that love, when real, was stronger than any empire's fear. The palace was under siege. Flames rose from the outer walls. Drones swarmed like black clouds. Warlords from the outer circle had activated their betrayal in full. They sent their finest assassins, soldiers enhanced with forbidden tech, and mercenaries who'd never lost a contract. And at the center of it all stood Queen Thalzira and Elias. She didn't wear armor. He didn't wear a crown. But together, they were stronger than either had ever been. They moved through the palace corridors side by side. Thalzira's blade sang as it struck. Elias covered her back with quick, efficient moves. No wasted energy. No retreat. They didn't fight like rulers. They fought like people who had something real to protect. The throne room, burned around them. And still they stood. But even the strongest hearts can be pushed too far. Thalzira was cut off. Guarded by a stun blast sent crashing to the floor. Elias turned to help her, but was surrounded by Warlord's guards, laser blades pointed at his chest. General Kale, the oldest of the rebels, stepped forward, sneering. "Now we see the truth," he growled. "The Queen brought a soft human to destroy us from within." Thalzira, weak but rising to one knee, hissed through bloodied lips. "He didn't destroy us, you did." Kale raised his weapon. "No more speeches, Thalzira. You've embarrassed the throne long enough. The people need strength, not your foolish feelings." Elias stared him down. "You think love is weakness because you've never had the courage to try it." The guards moved in. All seemed lost until the unexpected happened. The palace gates blew open. Not by enemy fire. By her people. Dozens dashed, then hundreds of citizens surged in, not to attack, but to protect. Workers, scholars, young soldiers, even former advisors who once doubted her. They came carrying plasma shields, old rifles, hammers, fists. They chanted her name. The LGIRA. They had seen her fight, not just with weapons, but with her heart. They had seen her stand beside a human not as a ruler, but as a woman brave enough to choose love. The people chose her back. Kale turned in shock. "You led them here?" Elias shook his head. "No, she did." With honesty. Chaos erupted again, but this time, Thalzira rose to her feet with strength in her bones. Her voice rang out like thunder. "Stand down or face the full will of the Empire. I am still queen, and this time I don't stand alone." The guards hesitated. Some lowered weapons. Some fled. Kale raised his blade for a final strike. Elias blocked him, and for the first time, Kale fell, not from strength, but from resolve. It was over. The rebellion was crushed, not by violence, but by truth. Hours later, the fires were gone. The palace stood scorched, but standing. And Thalzira stood before her people, no longer guarded by fear. She addressed the Empire once more. "I was born into power, but never into love," she said. "I ruled with steel because I believed that was the only way to survive. I was wrong." She turned to Elias, standing at her side. "I offered him the galaxy. He only wanted me." Soft cheers filled the air. She continued, "For that reason, I offer you all something greater than rule. I offer change. I will not rule alone, not anymore." She looked at Elias and held out her hand. He took it. Not as a conqueror, but as a partner. "For the first time," she said, "your queen has chosen not with tradition, but with truth. And if you can accept that truth, then together we can build something stronger than fear." The people erupted in cheers. Years passed. The empire shifted. The queen who once ruled with iron now led with both strength and grace. Elias became a quiet voice in her council, never taking power, only guiding it. They built schools. They ended old wars. They opened borders. And together, they redefined what it meant to rule. Not with fear, but with love. And every night, when the palace was quiet and the stars hung like jewels above Karen, Elias would look at her and say the same words he said the day they met. "I still only want you." And she would smile, not as a queen, but as a woman who had finally been seen and chosen.